Today is day 11, and today's story is about a young boy. A boy who wasn't simply called a talented baseball player, he was called baseball's boy wonder. A teenager who, even before entering Major League Baseball, was already being talked about as a future superstar. People said, if this kid could reach his full potential, he could change the world of baseball. But the real question was, could Bryce Harper actually handle those massive expectations? Or would he become just another young superstar who failed to live up to the hype? Today, we're going to see how a young baseball-loving kid used his power, his aggression, and his unbelievable confidence to become one of the biggest stars in Major League Baseball. This is the story of Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper's baseball journey was anything but normal. From a very young age, he had an extraordinary passion for the game. He didn't just want to play baseball, he wanted to dominate it. During his teenage years, Harper began showing an unbelievable ability to hit the baseball. His swing was powerful, his throwing arm was dangerous, and most importantly, he had a level of confidence that very few young players possessed. But Harper's biggest turning point came when, instead of following the traditional high school path, he took an unusual step toward college-level baseball. There, he continued to develop and polish his abilities. And then, in 2010, the Washington Nationals selected Bryce Harper with the #1 overall pick in the MLB draft. At just 17 years old, Harper had already become the most talked-about young player in professional baseball. But the real test was just beginning. Harper began his journey through the minor leagues within the Washington Nationals organization. With every game, the expectations grew. Fans were waiting for him. The media analyzed every performance. And baseball experts kept asking the same question: when is Bryce Harper coming to the MLB? Then, in 2012, that day finally arrived. Bryce Harper made his Major League Baseball debut. And when he stepped onto a Major League field for the first time, he wasn't just a young player. He was a phenomenon. Harper was only 19 years old, but his attitude, his intensity, and his confidence made him look like a veteran superstar. And then, he started doing exactly what the baseball world had been waiting for: hits, home runs, aggressive base running, powerful throws, and unbelievable energy. Harper won the National League Rookie of the Year award in his first season. And suddenly, baseball had a brand new superstar. But Bryce Harper's story wasn't just about success. Controversy followed him too. His playing style was aggressive. His body language was intense. And sometimes, his confidence looked like arrogance to his critics. Some people said Harper was too emotional. Others believed he still had a lot to learn. But Harper didn't answer his critics with interviews. He answered them on the field. With every season, his power continued to improve. And then came 2015. This was the season that transformed Bryce Harper from a superstar into an MVP. Harper produced unbelievable offensive numbers in 2015. He hit 42 home runs and won the National League Most Valuable Player award. And the most shocking part? He was only 22 years old. At just 22, Harper had already become an MLB MVP. The baseball world thought his career was now unstoppable. But baseball is never that simple. Harper faced injuries throughout his career. There were struggles. The expectations continued to grow, and questions began surrounding his future in Washington. With every season, fans expected even more from him. If Harper hit a home run, people said, that's what he's supposed to do. But if he struggled, critics immediately started asking questions. For a young superstar, that kind of pressure was never easy. But Harper turned that pressure into part of his identity. And then, after the 2018 season, the baseball world waited for one of the biggest decisions of his career. Bryce Harper was entering free agency, and teams across MLB wanted him to become the face of their franchise. Then, in February 2019, Harper chose his next destination, the Philadelphia Phillies. And the contract? 13 years, $330 million. At the time, it was one of the biggest contracts in MLB history. Now Harper carried more than just his own name on his shoulders. He also carried the enormous expectations of Philadelphia Phillies fans. In Philadelphia, the pressure became even greater. Phillies fans were passionate, and they wanted a superstar who could lead the team to a championship. Harper made an immediate impact during his first season with the Phillies. But one thing was still missing: postseason success. Harper had an MVP award, home runs, all-star appearances, millions of fans. But he didn't have a World Series ring. And in baseball, a superstar's legacy is often judged by championships. Then came 2021, and Bryce Harper answered his critics once again. He had an incredible season and won his second National League MVP award. By now, Harper was no longer just the former boy wonder. He had officially become an MLB superstar. But one dream still remained: the postseason. In 2022, the Phillies finally reached the postseason, and suddenly, the most important chapter of Harper's career was beginning. The National League Championship Series, Phillies versus Padres. Philadelphia needed to win just one more game to reach the World Series. And in Game 5, the score was tight. The tension was unbelievable. With every pitch, the noise inside the stadium grew louder. Then Bryce Harper stepped up to the plate. One pitch. Harper swung. Crack. The ball soared through the air, and then it disappeared into the left field stands. Home run. Bryce Harper had sent the Philadelphia Phillies to the World Series. That moment was more than just a home run. It was an emotional answer for the kid who had been called the boy wonder. Years earlier, people had wondered if he could live up to the hype. Now, he wasn't just a wonder kid anymore. He was a leader, an MVP, and a postseason hero. Bryce Harper's story teaches us an important lesson. Sometimes, talent can take you into the spotlight, but pressure turns you into a superstar. Harper faced enormous expectations. He faced constant criticism. He dealt with injuries. He experienced failures. But every time, he came back. And perhaps that is why Bryce Harper's name won't be remembered in MLB history only because of his statistics. It will also be remembered because of the attitude that made him different from the very beginning. A teenager who was once told, this kid could be special. And then, he proved to the world that he wasn't just special. He was Bryce Harper, the boy wonder, who became an MLB superstar. But Bryce Harper's story isn't over yet, because in baseball, every new season brings a new chapter. And one question still remains: can Bryce Harper make his legacy even more legendary? Can he lead the Phillies back to a World Series championship? And one day, will we count Bryce Harper among the greatest players in MLB history? The answer is still hidden in the future of baseball. But one thing is clear: the kid, who was once known simply as the boy wonder, ended up writing his own story. And that story is called Bryce Harper. If you enjoy real-life stories about baseball superstars, make sure to subscribe to Diamond Shocked and press the bell icon for Day 12's next incredible baseball story, because the next story could be about another baseball legend. See you in Day 12. Baseball Fire. I could turn the entire baseball world against you. And Bryce Harper saw all of it. But the most shocking part of his story was still yet to come. In 2010, the Washington Nationals selected a teenage Bryce Harper with the #1 overall pick. At just 17 years old, the expectations of Major League Baseball were placed on his shoulders. Every game, every hit, every mistake, everything became a headline. Then, in 2012, Harper made his MLB debut. His age, just 19 years old. But he didn't look like a teenager on the field. His swing was powerful. His confidence was unbelievable. And in his eyes, there was only one message: I didn't come here just to play. I came here to dominate. And then, in his very first season, he won the National League Rookie of the Year award. But that was only the beginning. Then came 2015. Bryce Harper shocked the entire baseball world. 42 home runs, and National League MVP. And the most unbelievable part? He was only 22 years old. But when you become a superstar that quickly, the world doesn't just expect success from you. It expects perfection. Harper faced criticism. He suffered injuries. He experienced failures. And then he left Washington and signed a historic deal with the Philadelphia Phillies. 13 years, $330 million. Now, the pressure was even greater. Fans didn't just want home runs. They wanted a champion. And the biggest question of Harper's career became, could this boy wonder ever lead his team to the World Series? Then, in 2022, that moment finally arrived. The moment Bryce Harper had been waiting for years. The Phillies were in the postseason, the National League Championship Series, Game 5. Thousands of fans inside the stadium, suspense with every pitch. And then, Bryce Harper stepped up to the plate. The pitch came in. Harper swung. Crack. The ball soared into the air. And then, it disappeared into the stands. Home run. The Philadelphia Phillies were going to the World Series. And, in that moment, one thing became clear. Bryce Harper was no longer the teenage boy the world once called the Boy Wonder. He had become an MLB superstar. But this wasn't the end of his story. It was the beginning of a new chapter. And today, we're going to see how Bryce Harper turned the world's expectations into pressure, and how one teenage baseball sensation became one of the most dangerous superstars in Major League Baseball. This is the story of Bryce Harper, *** baseball fire.